Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to talk about Hogwarts Legacy. It is basically an open world action RPG game based on Harry Potter universe. And to be fair, it is better than what I expected. Hogwarts Legacy welcomes us with a character creation screen. We can customize almost anything about our character. To be honest with you, as a person who can easily spend hours on character creation, Hogwarts Legacy satisfies me. We've seen better examples before, but it doesn't disappoint. Also, if you get bored with your character's look, you can always change it later. The game really wants you to customize your character as you wish without worrying about stats or buffs, so fortunately, we have the transmog system, which should be the standard for every game. If you're not familiar with the word transmog, it basically allows us to keep the stats of an item, but we can change its looks without losing the better stats. After completing the character creation, we have a cutscene and then the game takes us to the tutorial area and eventually we end up in Hogwarts. We are a 5th year student, but this is our first year in the school. For some reason, they noticed our magical power really late, and I personally didn't care about being a 5th year, but if you're expecting to reach the Hogwarts with boats as a first year student like in the movies, unfortunately you don't get that opportunity. Anyway, first thing first is the sorting hat decides on our house with a couple of questions. But if you're not happy with the result, you can just pick any of them. I wish the house we choose would have more effects on the game, but only thing it changes is the common room, where we almost never go, and the color of some clothes, and unfortunately that's all. One of the best things about this game is the open world and Hogwarts itself. The world of Hogwarts Legacy is beautiful. I rarely use the fast travel to go somewhere in the map, and I always hopped on my broom and enjoyed the beauty of Scottish Highlands. Throughout the game, there will be 2 more mounts you can use to travel around, which are a hippogriff and a grapphorn. But in my opinion, the broom is a lot better than the other options because it is easier to control and get into the small areas that the game lets you fly around. Also, I must say, there are many things to do in the open world. You can solve puzzles, encounter enemies, complete challenges, and even become a Pokemon master. To be fair, sometimes it gets too repetitive, however, it is better than most of the open worlds we know. The developers also did an amazing job with modeling Hogwarts. It is huge, beautiful, and you can explore almost anywhere in the school. But there is not much reason to spend a lot of time in Hogwarts. There will be some side and main quests you can do in the school, but mostly the game tries to keep you in the Hogwarts only with the room of requirements. And other than that, you'll be outside of the school. And if you're wondering what's the room of requirements, it is basically a place in Hogwarts where we can brew our own potions and grow plants which we can use later in combat for extra damage or healing or stunning enemies. Also, it gives us access to different kind of areas where we can keep the magical base we save in the open world, and when you feed them and clean them, you can acquire feathers, furs, etc. which you can use to upgrade your items later. But if you're not into that, the game doesn't force you to use room of requirements. It just introduces things and leaves it to you, so you can always focus only on the combat and adventure parts of the game. And I wouldn't blame you because I really appreciate the effort they put in the combat system. I had serious concerns about the combat parts of this game, and I thought the devs wouldn't care about the combat that much because the main focus would be on immersive Hogwarts, and I'm sure for some of us that would be totally enough, but they wanted to give us a decent combat experience too. The main thing that makes the Hogwarts Legacy combat system interesting is creating combos with different spells. For example, you can pull the enemy towards yourself and inflict damage with different spells, or when you levitate an enemy with Levioso, you can crash it to the ground with a Descendo. There are lots of different combos you can create, and it also helps you to use Ancient Magic. The Ancient Magic is basically a type of magic that only our character can use in the game. After some combos, you can fill the Ancient Magic bar and throw objects around or do some finishes on enemies. Also, I must say I love the Unforgivable Curses, and you can create even better combos with them. Especially after acquiring some buffs from the Dark Arts skill tree, you become almost invincible and terrorize your enemies. They are completely optional, the game doesn't force you to learn them, but I highly recommend you unlock them by completing the related quests. Even though the combat system exceeded my expectations, there is one important downside I need to mention, and it is the variety of enemies. There is only a small number of different enemies, and after playing for 4 or 5 hours, you face almost all of them, which means you'll learn their behaviors easily in a short period of time. The first time you encounter them, it's interesting and sometimes even challenging if you're playing in a hard difficulty mode. However, after the second or third time, it can't surprise you anymore. The lack of enemy variations is too obvious for a game that can take easily more than 30-35 hours to beat. The combos you can create make the combat less repetitive, but I would love to see more different types of enemies if there would be a sequel. I can tell Hogwarts Legacy is also aware of the problem, and it encourages you to use different spells to keep things interesting. For instance, some enemies will have magical shields around them, and you can break the shield with a certain spell that can match the color of the shield, or some puzzles will require a couple of different types of spells to solve them. However, having different types of spells does not mean we can use all of them during the combat. The game categorizes spells with the colors so we can understand when and why to use them easily. The yellow spells are mostly for restricting the enemy mobilization and stun them. The purple ones are for moving objects or enemies so you can pull or push the enemies and create better combos with extra spells. You need extra spells because neither yellow nor purple ones can deal direct damage. And this brings us to red colored ones. The red spells inflict the actual damage, which means you don't need to combine these spells to deal damage, but with combos you can increase the damage. And the dark green ones are the unforgivable curses. We have 3 of them, and they can help you to kill enemies instantly, or make them fight for you, or make them more vulnerable to your attacks. Except the 4 categories we mentioned, there are also blue and the light green ones. The light green ones can only be used in the room of requirement. They help you to add furniture to your room and change its color or size. And the last category, the blue spells, are mostly for solving puzzles, saving magical beasts in the open world, and feeding and petting them. I mean, I'm not too familiar with the Harry Potter lore or universe, but I wish there could be more spells. However, the ones that we have already also carry the game for me. Also, I should mention that we don't acquire spells with experience points, or in Hogwarts Legacy it's called talent points. With the talent points you gain, you can get buffs for your spells, but the way that we get spells is different. You can only gain them through the quests, and I don't think the game did a good job here. So basically, you go to the classes and a cutscene starts, and after the scene, you go and talk to the professor of the class. They give you 2 assignments, and after you finish them, you go and see them again to learn the spell. You learn most of the spells in the same way, but the worst part is, some assignments are really stupid. I know Hogwarts is not the safest school ever, but asking a student to kill 5 enemies in a certain way shouldn't be normal. However, my main problem is not this. The main problem is that the assignments are not creative at all. They either ask you to collect something or kill something, and it makes me think that the developers could have found a better way to do this. And generally, the quests are not very creative or interesting. The main quests are generally fine, but except for a couple of side quests and challenges, others don't go beyond go get something for me kind of quests. Also, I didn't find the story exciting or intriguing either, and couldn't connect with the character that I created. And I'm not sure if you can actually call this game an RPG because most of the time the decisions we make do not have consequences and you feel like it doesn't affect our character. I mean, don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I must say it didn't capture my imagination. So generally it couldn't offer anything interesting for me, but this is a personal opinion, so maybe it might give you a better experience story-wise. Now I want to mention some problems and annoying things I faced during my gameplay. I mean, they don't necessarily need to be problems for you, or maybe you don't even care about these things, but one of them was the optimization of the game. Especially before the second patch they released, I kept having FPS drops. Also, another one is, in Hogwarts sometimes when you go through a door, there's a small loading moment. I mean, I thought it was just my PC, but I saw some next-gen console users and high-end PC users were having the same problems. I mean, it's not a big problem at all because you don't wait a lot, it's just a couple seconds, but still it could be nice to not have those loading screens. Another thing that bothered me was the faces in the game. During the cutscenes, everything's alright, but during the gameplay, NPCs and even your character's face don't look good. They all look like from a game in early 2010s, unfortunately. From now on, I'm gonna mention just stupid things that annoyed me. And I believe this one annoyed everyone who suffered from it. It is how easily you can delete your save in the main menu. On Xbox Gamepad, if you press Y, it is supposed to take you to the settings. However, if you do it when you're on your character, it directly deletes your save and doesn't even ask you if you're sure you want to delete it. And because of that, I deleted my main save. I mean, they fixed this issue in a recent patch, but it was still a huge oversight to have in the beginning. The other one is that I wish we could interact more with the students in Hogwarts. I mean, I'm not talking about casting unforgivable curses on each other, but it could be nice to have some interactions. And last but not least, there are too many chairs in the game, but you can't sit at all. You can add chairs to your room of requirement and you'll see some fancy chairs in common rooms, but you can't interact with them. I know that sitting is not something essential in a game like this, but if you're customizing a room and if you give me different chair styles, I'd like to sit and spend a couple of minutes in my room. I mean, it's just probably me who wants to sit in this game that much, but I guess it could be nice. In the end, I can say it's a nice game to spend time in it. It has a nice open world, and this is the most comprehensive game in the Harry Potter universe, and it is the first time we get to freely wander around Hogwarts. It is a decent combat system that tries to stand against the lack of enemy variety too, but I mean, this game is not a masterpiece, and I don't think it's going to be the best game we played this year, but I generally enjoyed my time in the game, and hopefully they can do a better sequel. So, what are your thoughts about the Hogwarts Legacy? Did you enjoy it and spend tens of hours in the game, or you just hated it and asked a refund? Just let me know in the comments and leave a like on the video, and also subscribe to the channel please, and see you next time.